So it was real interesting. I was listening to a video this week of Sadhguru. And those of you who don't know, Sadhguru's a guru. Makes sense, that's his name, Sadhguru. I always said, well, is he so sad that he's got Sadhguru as his name? But I guess it's a different meaning in India, but I've come to really appreciate this man. And I really appreciate him because there's a way he speaks that has a lot of wisdom. And he was talking and he was contradicting something that I talk about. I didn't like that. And so I had to ponder what he was saying to see how is that really work for me. Because if you remember last week, I talked about how we ought to automate our habits, right? We should understand that we have habits, and those habits that we have are controlling our thought process, and that thought process is controlling what we're experiencing in life. And most of those habits are unconscious. So my talk last week was creating new habits of thinking. Automating your life, in other words, in the direction of what you want, not in the direction of you want. And Sad said, no. I said, ooh, that screws everything I've been talking about. But here's what he said. He says we've got to learn to be aware and conscious in every moment. Therefore, we don't need automated habits. So I started to ponder that even deeper. And I used myself as the example of that pondering. I said, oh crap, I'm not that aware. Am I even aware enough that I'm going to choose 2% of my thoughts during the day? Remember, we average about 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000 thoughts a day go through our mind. You take 2% of that. It's a lot of thoughts. 10% is what? 6,000 thoughts. Break that down so I may be thinking 700 thoughts consciously. I got a lot of work. But then I thought about it even a little bit differently. Because life is not about a quantum leap. Life is about a process. Do you get that? You really got to hear this clearly, that life is a process. It's not that you make a decision and you're automatically there. It's a process of becoming the man, the woman, the person who would be there. So if my goal is to live in awareness and be conscious of everything I'm thinking so that I'm really in choice at all times, maybe the process is until I can become that awareness that I automate my thoughts to make my life easier for me. Do you see that? So what I've come to understand this week is that automating the process of my thinking is the most logical, quickest step to have an impact on my life so that I can then start focusing on every thought. But I don't think it'd be wise to start the process when my mind's all confused, going through all this negative stuff I don't want, and then try to be conscious of every thought. I'll be nuts. The ego won't let it happen. Remember, the ego's there trying to bring us back to how it feels comfortable. How does the ego feel comfortable? The ego feels comfortable by living from the past. The ego's always going to drag you back to the past. That's where the ego's comfortable. And because it's comfortable there, it thinks that when you go beyond it, it's too scary. So we build up fear, and we get this fear inside of us. But if we can start to automate our thinking, building those habits, and then put conscious thought on it, I think that's a step. I wanted to share that with you because it's real interesting that when we think we know something, if we're listening for the next iteration of it, the next advancement of it, it makes its way known to us. That's really interesting that we never get there. It's always a journey, it's always a process, and we just have to start to honor that so that we don't start judging ourselves, well, why aren't I there? No, we have to be happy in the process. Everything we experience is there for us to learn so that we can become more aware, to be more conscious in how we create our lives. So I'm talking about the way the law works, okay? The law is the aspect of the infinite that creates. So if I had a big circle, and I would say the circle represents infinity, I would divide the circle into 3 quadrants. The top quadrant would be spirit. The middle quadrant would be the law. The bottom quadrant would be form. Or you could go, top is seed, middle is soil, bottom is plant. Does that make sense? So the law and soil represent the same thing. So when you plant an apricot seed into the soil will birth an apricot tree. It's not going to produce an apple tree. It's going to give you an apricot. So the thing is, what we think, the majority of our thoughts, the law creates them into experience. It does not judge them. And so I want to take it from the perspective of how the law works, from the perspective of how Ernest Holmes talked about it. He says, if it's true, it is done unto us as we believe, it becomes apparent that there must be something, notice that capital S, that does something according to our belief. So if it is done unto us as we believe, something has to take our beliefs and create from it. That's the law. That's the aspect that is the creative power. Okay? So when we talk about beliefs, I'm going to reiterate this. I'm going to say this over and over again until you can repeat it back to me. A belief are our thoughts, words, actions, and feelings aligned toward a specific result done persistently and consistently. Beliefs can be conscious and they can be unconscious. Get that? Thoughts, words, actions, feelings aligned toward a specific result held persistently and consistently. So he's saying, okay, if you got that belief, what makes it so? He says it's the law. We have no need for concern over the fact that the law can produce sickness or health, poverty or abundance, sadness or happiness. Here's why you don't have to have concern. It cannot do anything of its own accord. In other words, the law doesn't have power to judge and to think for you. The law is impersonal to you in that it responds to you. It doesn't say, Maya, you don't want that. I'm going to change what you want. The law doesn't do that. It doesn't go, Susie, hey, you could be going down the road here that's not going to be very pleasant. The law doesn't care. Do you get that? And when I say the law doesn't care, I can translate that into the Judeo-Christian religion and basically say, God doesn't care what happens to you. You hearing that? Because why? Because that aspect that is God is in you, and it can't care because it's there to give you whatever you want. That's where God is personal. You see, it's not personal because it doesn't care what you give it, but it's personal because it gives you what you believe. And so when you change your beliefs, it becomes very personal. It gives you everything you want. Goes on to say, no law of its own accord deliberately imposes unwanted situations or conditions on us. Nothing prescribes that we endure trial and tribulation except our own thinking. It must be because I need that lesson. No, it has nothing to do with that. You put out something that wasn't giving you what you wanted, therefore there's a natural response back. A natural response back. Now you get to choose whether you want that response or you want a different response. And then when you choose to be differently, what does the law do? It responds to the new you. Isn't it great that you've got that freedom? So when your emotions are feeling all funky, when your emotions are negative and you're not feeling good, it's telling you that what's happening or what you're thinking or what you're experiencing is not in alignment with what you want. Signal, change your thinking. That's where the saying from Ernest Holmes came, change your thinking, change your life. It all starts in the mind. Everything starts with cause. That's what the whole idea of the law is talking about. Everything is cause, and what's cause? It's your beliefs. And you get to choose them. No one else can choose your beliefs for you. No one. Unless you let them. Have you let your mom and daddy choose your beliefs? Have you let prior religions choose your beliefs? Have you let prior relationships or current relationships choose your beliefs? Have you subordinated yourself to someone or something? Subordination, when we do the act of subordination, what we're saying is we are not worthy. When we subordinate ourselves to anyone or anything, there's no longer love. Because love involves perfect acceptance. If we do not choose the law, how to use the law of averages chooses for us. This is really, really one of the biggest things in the world, and this is why we have lives that are not lives that we want. Because we haven't made conscious choices in specific areas. We may have made a conscious choice, but we may not have made and built a belief. It's interesting to say, I want to be a millionaire. Well, I've said I want to be a millionaire. But are all your thoughts, your words, your actions aligned toward being a millionaire, and are you holding them persistently and consistently? If you're not, then it's just hoo-ha. Here, you want to be a millionaire, Sonny? Here's a crystal. This is a magic crystal. This crystal will work for you. That's what we get into the woo-woo, into the new age stuff. We pass off our power into objects, thinking the objects will make us better. The objects have nothing to do with it. If the object works for you, why would it work? Because you believe in the object. You believe in that aspect. So if you believe in voodoo, and someone's sticking a needle in the dowel that's you, ooh, that hurt. And it only hurt because you believe in it. It's not because voodoo is true. Do you get that? That goes into every aspect of life. Do you believe that you can get up in front of a pitcher and hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball? I don't know about you, but it's been a lot of years. It's probably been 20 years, and I can remember being in the batting cage, and the ball was coming at me at 54 miles an hour, and there was more wind than there was contact with the ball. That's half the speed. Think about that. But there are people that believe that they can hit that 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and they do it because they believe it. Here's the thing, though. How much do they believe it? The best believe it 30% of the time. The most Hall of Fame people, the Hall of Fame baseball players, hit an average of roughly 300, which means they're hitting 3 out of 10 balls for a hit. Did you get that? Why is it that that's okay? Because it's a process. Baseball is a game that's a process of batting, pitching, catching, that. It's a process, you see? So the question I want to ask you is, in your process, in the game of life that you're creating for yourself, and you're hitting 300, are you beating yourself up saying that's not good enough? But when you're hitting the 300, are you moving forward towards your goal? See, if you're moving forward towards your goal, you're on a winning path. That's the key thing. You're on a winning path, so you have to embrace this. You have to embrace that it's not about being there right now, but it's about getting there over a period of time. Nothing befalls us that is not the nature of our lives. So, I'm going to go back in history. I'm going to go back 35 plus years, maybe 36 years in life. Jean and I were told we could never have children. We were told, the doctors, you know the gods? You know the gods with the big MD after their name? Medical doctor, they're everything. They know everything. They told us, am I right, Jean? We could not have children. And so we had to make a decision. What were we going to do? And we paused. I know I needed to pause, so I paused for 3 days. Why 3 days? I have no idea. But I paused and I said, do I want children? Is a child necessary for my life? I came back with, it was important for me to have a child. I don't know why. I do now, but I didn't know why then. So I said, so what are my options? My options are I could get a surrogate man to make love to my wife. Didn't like that option. We could do in vitro. Didn't feel right. Or we could adopt. So we got together and Jean and I discussed it and we both agreed that we would adopt. And so then the process goes, you could say, well, God, what an unfortunate thing to happen. You wanted children, you couldn't have children. And so then we go and we start the adoption process. We're matched up with a mother. Baby was born 3 months from the time we signed up. 3 months, baby is born, ours. Mother backs out, has the baby, backs out. Oh my God. Life doesn't want you to have that baby. Remember, life is a process. So we let that go. Got matched up with another mother almost immediately. 3 months later, the baby's born. We find out the medical history and find out that the baby has a 50% chance of having Huntington's disease. We made a decision not to adopt. Oh my God, victim again, aren't we? God doesn't want us to have a baby. Said no. 3 months later, we were matched up again. 3 months later, my son Stephen was born. So there's a process. The process continued. Like a year and a half or so later, we were ready to adopt a second baby. And Jean comes home pregnant. She found that guy. She won't admit it. You saw Matthew last week if you were here. He's a spitting image of me, for God's sakes. But you see, the process is always moving. And so the process continued in that my son Matthew, the biological son, turned out I had a gay seed. And so my son came out gay. So I said, holy crap. My son Stephen doesn't want kids. My son Matthew's gay. I said, well, turn it over to the universe. I wanted grandchildren. Thing that I didn't realize, Matt, in his very being, wanted to be a father as one of his top values, and so he adopted baby Claire. And you got to meet her last week. You see how there's no right way that this happens? But it's an intention. What did you want? I wanted a child to be a father. It doesn't have to be the way that everyone else has it. That's what I'm trying to say to you. If you've never had children, you can still be a parent to people who come into your life. You can be there to guide and support and nurture people. If you don't want to be a parent, that's cool too. There's nothing wrong with this. The key to life is find out what your gifts are. Give your gifts with all of your heart and soul. Be persistent and consistent with it. Build a belief about your gifts and know that there's a power within you that is going to do the work. You don't have to do the work. You've got to hold the belief. You've got to be aware of what you're thinking. You've got to be aware. Am I in alignment with what I want? You've got to hold that alignment. When everything around you is falling apart, you hold the alignment. In 2008, when all these millions and millions of people lost money, their things, there were a group of people that made their fortune. How is that possible? They believed that they could make money no matter what the situation. Most people do not believe that. That's why almost all baby boomers getting ready to retire don't even have a minimum of $10,000 in the bank. Can you even imagine? I can't. I can't even imagine because that's not who I am. But the majority of people are like that. The question is, do you want to be a statistic or do you want to be an individual? That's a really good question to ask because if you allow the law of averages to work for you, you are a statistic. But if you claim your power, you understand what you value. From your values, you get your purpose and you live that purpose. You are not a statistic. You are a creator. You're an individual. You are one of the rare people on the planet who understand and have embodied the power is in you and you've made a choice to use it. Why not? Why would we do anything less? Ernest says, when we come to understand the way in which thought produces our experience, we awake to the fact that we should be exceedingly careful that nothing enters or is retained in our consciousness except that which is good. And what he's saying there, it's not the word good, he's saying what you want. Where are you directing yourselves toward? That's what he's saying there. Thoughts may come in. There's a lot of stuff out there. I got into a stupid habit. I had on my iPad, I had one site that iPad gave you that says click on it and you get the news. And I would click on it and I would just get the headlines. Do you know just looking at the headlines impacts you? Just reading the headlines impacts you? Gene and I got the opportunity, not an opportunity, we took the opportunity to go watch Jordan Peterson on Thursday night. Jordan Peterson, if you're not aware, is a clinical psychologist out of the University of Toronto, and he is owning the internet right now. And he's very controversial by some people's standards because the radical left hates his guts and the radical right hates his guts because he's coming into the middle and he's basically pretty conservative, but he's talking about how your beliefs create and that he talked about personal responsibility. He really talked about personal responsibility. He was talking about, I'm watching, there's a crowd of maybe 5,000, 6,000 people there. 5, 6, and he's talking about personal responsibility. I'm looking around at this crowd saying, I wonder if they really get what that means. I wonder what they really get because the appearance is that most people don't get it. But the reason I love going to see Jordan, and you can watch a lot of his stuff on YouTube if you want. The reason I love going to see him, he makes me think. You want people in your life that cause you to think. Because when you're thinking, you can create. But if you're not thinking, you're just going to keep repeating the same old patterns over and over and over again. And if you can have a few relationships in your life, 1, 2, 3 relationships where you've got someone where you can sit down and talk and they challenge you. They bring up new ideas. You want that. You've got to treasure that in your life because that's what allows you to become more unique, more growing, and that. It's just so simple when we get it. But we don't think about it that way. You say, well, they're thinking not the way I want to think. They're a Democrat or they're a Republican. The first thing I would say, stop calling yourself a Democrat or a Republican. I'm not either. I'm Lee Wolak. Would you like to meet Lee Wolak? Here I am. I think for myself. I don't think because other people think that way. I don't think because I was born into a particular way, religion, whatever. I think for myself because I don't want to be an average. If I was an average, 18 years ago, I would have had brain surgery for the tumor in my head. Instead, I said no, and I got rid of it through my process of healing by myself. Don't give your power away. Don't give your power away to anyone. You can use things in your life. You can use a doctor. You can use a psychologist. You can use a minister. You can use all of that. But don't give your power away to them. Question and see what works for you. And think about this. What works for you may not work for anyone else. And the reason it might not is because you're unique. You're an individual. And isn't it time that we embrace that truth for ourselves? Inside, embody this statement, I am unique. And all the power in the universe is present within me for me to be unique and create my personal life. When you embody that, you become the power. You take it back, and you will never let anyone get in the way again. So let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.